John Philpin, welcome to the ROI Online Podcast.
Steve, thanks very much for the invite. Very much looking forward to this conversation.
So, John, you're doing this radical thing. Everyone that's listening to this podcast and wondering why I need to lean into this conversation and hang around a bit. And so you're doing something really radical, and it's called People First. It's like, what got into you, man? Why people first?
I don't know. There's just something that's been sitting badly with me for many, many years. I'm from the corporate world and I've made my living in there. And I just increasingly find myself sitting in a world that seems to be corporate first, and people can pick up the pieces behind that. So I'm very much into the idea of people first. And in actual fact, when you put people first, the corporation ends up being a whole lot better, curiously enough. So it's not just about people, it's about making businesses work better.
That's crazy thinking, man. No, I love it. I love it because, I've been a part of cultures that weren't people first. That made you feel like, like you're there like a horse that needs to be rode till you need to be put them out to pasture and let's get someone else in here. And it's like not real motivational.
That's absolutely right. And it just goes deeper and deeper into all kinds of things. I mean, just picking up on very, very recently, right? The Reddit attack, if you will, on the hedge funds. All they've done is come together and said, we don't agree with what you're doing. We're going to push the stock the other way. And guess what? Everybody's so upset about the corporations losing billions. Nobody ever thinks about the people when it happens the other way. So it's always there. It's apparent in front of our eyes, but we don't necessarily think of it in the terms of, well, if you thought about people first, this might not be happening.
It's a theme that I've been preaching as well, is that, marketing's broken because the marketing message is designed for what I call the Dillard's mannequin, that faceless, nameless thing that you can hang boys' clothes on or girls' clothes on. But the one common thing is it's got a credit card. So let's design our messaging to that faceless thing that has no name instead of humans that have dreams and hopes. And I believe the pendulum is swinging back from this industrialized, just minions, just use the minions and throw them out the door, to now it's like, we're not going to take it anymore. I have a name. And that's where...
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's like we're not customers, we're not consumers, we're not employees, we're not users. We're all people. And by the way, we're people on both sides of the equation. We contribute into the value of a corporation. And with that money, we buy things from that corporation and indeed other corporations. Businesses are nothing without people.
So you have a book coming out. And I'm going to let you say the title because I'm going to mess it up. But I've got an alternate title for it. But go ahead.
Okay, let's go for it. We could do that. It's called For Business Leaders Slapped in the Face by a World They Thought They Knew.
Yeah. So mine would be like, what do you do after you get that big bitch slap from the world? It's like... I turned around and wham, where did that come from? But what's going on? Why do we need to, why is the world we thought we knew different than we think?
So the book, I mean, I've had many books in my head for many years, and this is the first of a series of books that will be coming out. And it's been accelerated forward just with the odd time we're living in. It's nothing to do with the COVID issue, but it's definitely to do with how businesses have reacted to what's going on around them. So COVID is a side thing as far as I'm concerned, but the fact is that businesses say, expect the unexpected. And boy, did the unexpected happen, and were we so unprepared, it's extraordinary. So the book doesn't offer a solution for you because everybody's different. I can't give you a template saying, if you do these things, but the book really is about making sure that the next time this sort of change slaps you in the face, that you can be ready for it. You can define the world on your terms and not have to react to what's going on around you. That's what the book's about. And it really is, I see it more of as a workbook, a journal, if you will, to help you start asking yourself questions, because what the butcher, the baker, and the candlestick maker need to do with their business is going to be a little bit different to what a business dealing with the services industry or the call center or the banking industry. But they've all got the same problem, that they've just been slapped in the face by a world they thought they knew. It's about change. Change is always occurring. It's going to get faster. So let's do something about it on our terms, on people's terms.
You know, and the makings of a really good story, that's, you have this hero that realizes that the status quo has changed, and they struggle with accepting it both externally and internally. And what makes it great action or great story is to see the internal struggle of not feeling confident enough to actually make it through and doubting whether they have what it takes. And I think that what has happened in the past year or two has really slapped everyone in the face and made us realize that whether we like it or not, the status quo has changed. It's really revealed all the areas we weren't prepared. But in my case, I'm telling you, the people in my organization, they were the ones that really made it worthwhile to stay persistent and stay focused in the march through the fire.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt when the conversations we've had in the past, I've always enjoyed talking to you because you come from a very human perspective. And I can only imagine the people in your business, but also what I call the stakeholders that surround you, that sort of basically allow you to have the success you do, that comes from a human perspective. They're not doing it to make Steve Brown a multimillionaire. It might happen as a side thing, but they're doing it because you all have a good relationship. You're working together. And it's extraordinary what happens when you do that.
Yeah, if there was one thing that I tell you this last year is, if I didn't feel like I was succeeding, I didn't feel like I was winning. But then when I sat down and toward the end of the year and did an audit, it's like, wow, we have accomplished a lot of great things. And it's because they circled up the wagons and really dug in, and we pulled off some really cool stuff, even though it didn't feel like it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can't remember the exact quote name, but I'll dig it out for you. But it's something like the idea that change never happens until it happens all at once, right? And the fact is, you forget when you're going through the year of work, you're going, oh my God. And you go back and look back. It's like if you think about years in as one level, but also months, also weeks, also days, and just start measuring at those levels. It's amazing what, actually, one of the chapters in the book is exactly about this. Don't think of life as checklists and tasks. Think about your strategic plan and actually check in with yourself on a regular basis, because you'll be amazed what's going on. And sometimes you sit back and think nothing's moved. I've lost that deal, or that conversation didn't go well, or I've had two, in fact, just today, this is one of 3 conversations I'm doing through Zooms today. And the other 2, basically, one cancelled to outset to postponed till February. The other one's supposed to later on in January. And so I've suddenly got free time. Some people would think, oh my God, people don't love me. I think, no, now I've got time to go and do those other things I wanted to do. There's always an upside. And don't feel sorry. Just check in and think, okay, it's all a steady process. It's like the overnight success of that singer. It's because he'd been working, or she'd been working for 10, 15 years without anybody knowing about them. And then suddenly they were discovered. Overnight successes. They're amazing things.
Amazing things. Yeah. Lots of backstory to that overnight success. So at peoplefirst.vision, what are some of the resources that you offer that would help people start to embrace or feel a little bit better about approaching, this change that we're having to?
Yeah, so at core, I'm a sales and marketing dude. That's where I've lived my life, in the software industry very specifically. And a long time ago, long before I was born even, there's a guy that had this idea of breaking the marketing story down into garnering attention and interest, creating desire, moving to action. It's called the AIDA model, and there are many versions around this. And what I've been doing over the past couple of years is really at that first part, the attention. So when you go to I have a range of sites, peoplefirst.London. The vision site is my blog. It used to live in a different world. I've recently moved across there. It's the blog, and very soon we'll have a certain amount of information about what's going on there. But I also have a newsletter that goes out on a weekly basis. That's called peoplefirst.news. I have my book coming out, which will be peoplefirst.pub. I have a podcast, which is peoplefirst.fm. And all of this is that garnering attention and getting interest. It's being a little bit provocative in all I write and do, and another thing, what about this? And have you thought about that? Raising questions and building commentary. In the past 6 months, I've then started thinking, okay, so that's great. You're in broadcast mode. How do you now start, building a community around you? And for that, I built a network. Guess what it's called? It's called peoplefirst.network. And at peoplefirst.network, you'll find the start of a community that I'm beginning to build, where people who can see what I'm writing, and indeed, I'm not the only person. There are many people in my space writing about this kind of stuff and all have different opinions, that are beginning to congregate in different spaces. And peoplefirst.network is purely a space for anybody to come in, listen to the words of wisdom of some very interesting people that are building software solutions, that are building their own communities, offering courses, whatever it might be. Within that space as well, I will be offering courses. At the moment, it's not there. It's all completely free to join. It's simply trying to build engagement and find out what's interesting to other people. Because at the end of the day, if this ends up as being the John show, it's not going to work. This is about bringing everybody together, even to the point that one of the site domains I have is called peoplefirst.community, which once this takes off properly, I will then be using the community site to link out to all my friends running other businesses in this space. So if you read a guy called Doug Rushkoff, who has something called Team Human, professor out of NYU, he will be on that community list. And DigiMe, which is an application, a piece of software coming out of the UK, will be on that space. So the community world is the extended everything, right? So I'm not trying to be, oh, guess what? I've just had this great idea. Tons of people are working on this. What I want to do, my observation is that this is going on inside a bubble almost, and the people that it can really help aren't that aware of it, because you don't read about this in mainstream news. They hear something like the future of work. You hear people talk about it, and it's in such abstract, crazy ways that they talk about it that you think, well, this is ridiculous. Stop being a coal miner and start coding. Really? That is not a solution, right? We train people, we don't educate them, we train people to be a cog inside a corporate machine. And now the corporate machines are going automated and people are unemployed. We say, well, go be an entrepreneur. How? When do we ever train people to do that? So that's my conversation. It's about understanding that when you talk about working from home because you're a knowledge worker on this, that's great for knowledge workers. That's how I make a living. But it's not great for a lot of people who have to go to a factory or create some hair or drive a tank, whatever it might be. All these things, people are being affected by what goes on around them. That's the space I'm creating now.
You're listening to John Philpin. He's the author of For Business Leaders, Slapped in the Face by a World They Felt They Knew. He's People First is his organization, and we're talking about the humanization of the way we work, the way we treat people, the way that we grow the value of our businesses. So, John, where did you get this inspiration to even really start beating the drums on this topic?
Well, I mean, I've always been, in the industry that I come out of, the software industry. As I said, I'm a marketing guy, and I'm known for the guy that puts his hand up and go, wait. It's all very well you saying that, but what about the customer? Why do they give a damn, right? So in my business world, customer first has been my focus, that you need to give people a reason as to why they should give a damn about this stuff that you're producing. They're going to part with money. So it's naturally in me. And I guess the dawning on me sort of came to play maybe 6-7 years ago now, as I started thinking about this idea of, I've always hated the expression being a user. and customers and client. You know, what's the difference between a customer and a client? I just kept on thinking, it was something gelling in me. And I just said, we're all goddamn people. You know, why are we categorize it because we need to subdivide and create markets of one, et cetera, et cetera. So just treat people intelligently as people. So having got that to position, I happened to be working in a software business at the time. So I started getting involved with different organizations. And when I left that organization, I thought, I'm just going to turn this into something. I'm not going to join something else. Let's take this out. I started doing that about 4 years ago. That's how old the original blog was. Newsletter is about 2.5 years old now. So it's been a slow, steady progress. Again, I'm not known for what I do. I'm known for a whole pile of other stuff. So plenty of people call and say, John, could you ... And so as I've been making this transition, we still have to make a living. So we make that living, but trying to move now into this space and bring everything that I've learned, because you don't learn bad things in the corporation. You learn very good things. You must do. So all I'm saying is that's great. How do you now apply all that learning that you had in the corporation to you? How do you bring what Citibank does with its hundreds of marketeers to a baker? Mm-hmm. How do you do that? A lot, again, going back to the book, the book is based on methodologies and approaches I've used in organizations for years, large organizations. I've just broken it down to a way that anybody, an individual, can now pick that book up, read through it and go, yeah, I can do this. So it's just, it's been a slow process, a slow journey, but a great journey, and meeting lots of good people on the way through.
We're having this conversation, and I would love to kind of like think of all the vocabulary words that dehumanize the other side. Okay, so so you said users, you said consumers, clients, prospects, but another one is like leads. I got a lead, right? And so we ought to design a vocabulary with the old dehumanized ways and then the human side of that. And I got rebuked a little bit, and it was like really good rebuke. You said, why in your book, Steve, you do a great job of arguing about humans, but then you go a lead. He goes, it's a relationship, not a lead. And I'm going, ow, he got me. But that was like, excellent.
You're absolutely right. I mean, a lead is what you basically put on a dog to make sure it doesn't run into the road. But it's interesting you bring that up. So within People First, it's a very, very broad tent, but very quickly, I have 8 pillars that I hold in my head about the thinking of this. The work side and the commerce side, creating the business equation. Then I have 3 pillars that are called identity, data, and technology. And on the other side, I have language, learning, and value. And all my thought process run around those 8 pillars, as I call them. And I'm bringing that up now because language is one of those pillars. Exactly what you just said, the dehumanizing. It's like, listen to what a large bank or any large organization will say about the relationship they have with you, how they want to partner with you, that you are their most important person, and so on and so forth. Cut now to the inside of the building where that's coming from, the marketing war room, where they talk about taking the hill, about maximizing share of wallet. I mean, what language do you believe? I personally believe the language behind closed doors. So to me, we live in this world of transparency, but it's only transparent if it suits you. And another example, I've got a personal war on the word content, right? You wrote a book, I wrote a book. You write articles, you run podcasts. You do great things, and I'm trying to do great things. It is not content. Content is what you put in a silo. It's homogenized stuff. If you can't fill that silo up with that content, you throw it away and put some other content in. What it does is it reduces the price that the corporation has to pay for that homogenized content, because it's all the same. If you can't write the article for me, hey, I'll get the article done by somebody else, and they'll do it for free because they want to make their name big. Mm. And you think, okay, so whose benefit is it to write content for free? I write books, articles, blog posts, I do podcasts, I never do content. And if you want content, then I understand why the corporations call it content, because they want it for cheap as they can get it. They're about maximizing profit. But why do we as creators, as artists, as writers, as presenters, talk about our intellectual property that we make a living off as content? It's a strange thing, but we get sucked into this corporate vocabulary. And that's another, again, that in itself is just one pillar inside the people first tent.
That's excellent. The vocabulary is very, can be very damaging if you're not recognizing. So let's talk about some of the other pillars. What was like the main pillar that really motivated you to write the book? First, set the story up on what finally convicted you. Oh, I just got to write a book.
Well, I've been wanting to write a book since I was about 8, as far as I can work out. I remember the conversation with my mother very well. I just never sure what the book was going to be.
Right.
The book that I have in my head is still not this book. But this particular book came from this, we always talk about change, and change is always happening. But what happened in 2020 was such a vast global hit you in the face, what are you going to do kind of change, that it just said, okay, this is a message, this is what I've got to get out. Because change management is what I've done, right? I say it's sales and marketing, but essentially I translate what side is saying to what the other side is saying and explain how things are going to change to make that work to the better. It might be talking between a sales and marketing team, explaining to sales what marketing does and vice versa. But it's essentially it's change. So that's what prompted me to write the book around this. But it's not really the whole people first canon. The people first whole idea, I've always been interested in the future of work, but the original thing that started taking me into this was actually identity. And this idea, again, coming out of the software world, ID is what everybody talks about. How do you prove who you are? What credentials do you use to log in? All this kind of stuff. The word, back to language, identity, is 2 parts: ID and entity. The entity of who you are, your ego, your self, your inner voice, everything that makes you you is your entity. ID is not your identity. And this has been something I've banged on for a long time about now, but that's what got me into this, thinking, how do we break this stranglehold of the tech industry, talking about ID of users, right? It's like, no, what's their identity? How do we bring this in? And there's some very interesting and clever work going at a deep technical level where people are trying to reconcile how this problem works and how you do it. How do you bring identity in a human way into technology? And another part of this that makes it very interesting is that, on the fringe side of what I do, I look a lot at the underprivileged, unrecognized people of the world. People that are sex trafficked, people that have, sort of refugees trying to get out of a place. They have no papers, they have no ID, but they do have an entity. They are people. So there's a work again going on. How do you bank people that can't prove who they are? And if you can't bank people, then where do they put their money? Oh, it's in cash. Oh, they get robbed. There's something about that sort of, needs to sparkle. Again, lots of very bright and intelligent people doing work around this that sort of says, no, we now have to work. If you go for a cashless society, everybody has to be banked. By the way, why is a bank allowed to hold your identity? Why am I not allowed to hold my identity? My identity is mine. I should let you know who I am through an independent validation that I am who I am and I can afford to do this. No single institution should be allowed to. So that's what drove this originally. That's where the identity came from. A lot of my recent stuff comes around work and the future of work because I see so much rubbish being spoken about it. I actually talk about the future of income. And it's a much more interesting conversation to my mind. Who really wants to work? Right? Who wants to get up and empty garbage cans, or get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to clean offices, or to bake bread so that somebody can eat it, or to drive a taxi, or whatever? There are definitely some people that enjoy that, but most people work to get money so they can afford to live. Now, if I can give you a different way of making money that wasn't called work, and you just concentrated on the future of income, is that a little bit more interesting? Now, when I talk about income, I'm not talking about UBI, universal basic income. I'm not talking about government handouts. I'm talking about when you look at a very rich person, they're not paid by the hour. They're paid by utilizing their assets. Jeff Bezos is worth the billions he is because he has some very expensive assets that he's in control of. But we've all got assets. Why can't we monetize that? I own a big, expensive lawnmower. Why can't I monetize that in a way that it can be loaned out to people and pay me to offset that cost? Why can't I buy a self-driving car and send that out and being a taxi for me? I don't have to work it. It'll just round. That whole idea is what I think is a much more interesting conversation, because really at the end of the day, most jobs are going to be automated out. And the answer is not to be a caregiver. Plenty of caregivers. If we actually rewarded caregivers in the way that they should be, if we actually rewarded teachers in the way that they should be, then they'd be a lot more interested in going there. But we don't. So that's not a future work. If you've just lost your $200,000 job running in some bank as a middle manager somewhere because they're flattening the organization, good idea for the corporation, that middle manager can't earn that money elsewhere as a caregiver or a teacher or whatever else it might be. So how do they fix that? That's the exploration that I go down with in that particular pillar, and so on and so forth. So it depends. I read things and I go, well, that's not right. And get on the old keyboard.
What I find very interesting is that there's this dilemma. You're from the IT world. We're implementing software because of obvious upsides to utilizing software, the efficiencies, being able to filter data and put data in front of you to help you make better decisions. But the dilemma or the challenge is, how do we keep it still where it feels human on the user experience, the human experience side, or what I call HEO, human experience optimization? I think that's where the future, the pendulum, like you and I started this conversation, is swinging back to how do we take this unhuman part of the world and package it to where it feels very human, feels very respectful.
Yeah, I think it depends which particular company we're talking about. I think there is good work. I think one of the key things is not for us as individuals, as people, to feel that we have got some kind of dependency on a corporation to prove who we are. So this identity thing, I think, is pretty fundamental. Why? I was looking at a website. Somebody asked me to review their website. They're selling some kind of video things through it. And I looked at the shopping cart. I had to pass across to them 20 pieces of information about me before I could buy. And I was clicking on the PayPal button. I know that I need a single click on PayPal, I can buy it. So why are you wanting these 20 pieces of information about me? Why do I have to jump through that hoop? And what are you going to do with that information? So the work that I look at with again, there's plenty of them, but I'll name DigiMe as the UK company that seems to be the leader in this space. This idea of people talk about digital wallets, but holding the information to yourself. When I'm applying for a mortgage, then the mortgage company says, okay, I need this, this, and this about you. That's great. My digital wallet opens up, it passes the information through, and at the same time that information passes through, a contract is instantiated. This contract says that you can use this information to give me my mortgage. The information is not going to be stored to you, not moved off to a third party. It's going to return back to my wallet, right? So there's deep technology to actually make that kind of stuff work. But the curious thing is that corporations have spent billions in these data warehouses. By the way, warehouses, lakes, mountains, all these natural things where they keep data because they want to make it feel nice and green. It's a natural thing, a data lake and a data mountain. It's not natural. It's not necessary. So stop calling it that. But because they've invested these billions, they don't understand that they'll get much richer information. If I give you my information that I need right now to you, you won't have to triangulate information and check up. It'll be there and validated by a third party. So that is, to me, the start of humanizing, putting me back in control. Micropayments is another one. Why? I used to be able to go to a newsstand and buy a newspaper. It might have cost me 10 cents, 20 cents. These days it costs a couple of bucks. Why do I have to sign up for a year online to read an article? Why have you got a giant paywall? Why can't I just pay you $1 to read that article? Why don't they implement those kind of models? Because they want you locked into their world. And until the corporations understand that there's a rebellion against that lock-in, then we're going to have this eternal problem. So answering your question, just treating us as intelligent humans, and we are intelligent humans, will actually allow, I'll buy stuff from people that sell me a buck a time. If I don't, I'll find another way around it. There's plenty of ways around firewalls and paywalls to get to what you want. So their choice.
We're having a fascinating conversation with John Philpin. He's the author of For Business Leaders, Slapped in the Face by a World They Felt They Knew. People First is his company. So, John, what's the one question that you wished you could answer that you never get asked?
Oh, wow. Never. Well, that's one question that never been asked that I can never answer. The one question I wish, the one question I'd like to be able to answer, I always do get asked, is to just reduce this down to a simpler thing. I'm very aware that my elevator pitch is not succinct, partly because it's so broad, right? So if somebody's interested in identity, I can go down that. But this idea of people first is a big piece of pie to bite. The thing that, gosh, you've tripped me up. The other way around, though, I can't think of one. I think, why should I join your, I guess, give me one good reason why I should sign up to peoplefirst.network. Why should that be? And the answer is, it's not about me. It's not about what I'm talking about. It's the idea that you become part of a community of people that have similar concerns as yourself. What I'll be trying to do is, if you're a small business in Ohio, you'll be able to link in with other small businesses in Ohio and share experiences. That's what I'm trying to get to. Mm-hmm. So joining the network is the one thing that people can do to learn more. Again, not just from me, but from all other people as well. I think that answers your question, but I'm not sure.
No, I like it. I was thinking, though, we could work on your one-liner for what you're trying to do.
Right.
Okay. So here's what's coming out is that people want to be acknowledged as a human and feel safe and understood. People First has a process to help your business accomplish that, to help connect better with your relationships that support you, that buy from you, and for the employees that help grow the value of your business.
There you go. You got it. Absolutely. When the podcast comes out, I'll make sure I soundbar that out and start using it. Yeah, perfect. But that's exactly right. It is about bringing humanity back and recognizing that corporations are simply made up of people. Corporations are a set of laws. It's a business. Business laws and the things that it does are created by people. There are rules made by people, and nothing is absolute. I drop an apple on the floor, gravity says, boom. I can do nothing about that. The rules of business are absolutely up for grabs. They can be changed. And that's what I'm trying to get across. Change them for the better, and that is by understanding that we are all people.
Excellent. John, you've been an awesome guest on the ROI Online Podcast.
Well, thank you, Steve. It's been absolutely fun and a real pleasure to be here, and so great to catch up with you again. Thank you for the invite once more. It's been a real pleasure, absolutely. And you, what I'm seriously impressed by is you listened, and that little summary at the end definitely says to me, you get it, and you do. Thank you very much for that interpretation.
Well, my pleasure. We want to get it. And that's what people get when they listen to the ROI Online Podcast. They get it too.
There you go. It's brilliant.
Thanks, John.
Thank you very much, Steve. Talk to you soon. Be good.
And that's a wrap.